My 2019 Beta RS500. Went to change the oil after a ride the other day. It was a little bit overdue. Changed engine oil, no problem. Changed transmission oil on this side, and it came out looking like looked like coffee with too much creamer in it. It wasn't. Notice the color of the transmission fluid. It wasn't frothy, but it looks like coffee with too much creamer. Water is getting in through the drive shaft of the impeller through this rubber seal here. This is a chunk of gray rubber. I expect water penetrating that, entering my transmission. So we're going to do water pump and plastic oil drive gears while we're in here. Water pump has a drive shaft that and a seal right here that gets it's driven off of the gears from the transmission side. So that seal that goes in that pocket there was suspect. I had to completely beat that thing to get it out, and it's hardened to the point of almost like plastic instead of rubber. The bearings on the back side, I cleaned them up because I was considering reusing, but it's just not worth it, man. It's just not worth it. So I ordered a new kit. But you'll notice the bearings were darker. Also, beating on them kind of ruined that shield or ring. And when you spin them, it's not exactly making noise, but I feel a bit of vibration. You really shouldn't with bearings. So I used an emery cloth and cleaned up the shaft and put a new O-ring on there, and I got to putting it in, and I couldn't see myself blowing up a motor or something over, I don't know, $100 part. So I bought the kit. Bought the kit from Sierra BMW Motorcycles out of Sparks, Nevada. They did real well. It was, I think, $114. Kit came within, I'd say, 3 days. I think I paid an extra $7 for UPS ground. And we're going to reassemble now. So I'm hoping you guys can see this if I set this device up here. I think you can see. So here we are. First off is going to be a bearing in this side. Of course, I've cleaned everything real well with rags. Little pick, cutting all the nooks and crannies down in there. There was a lot of calcified water or deposits. Just want to make those fit in there well. Bearing on the inside here. I'm going to drive that with just a socket and a rubber mallet and try and be as gentle as I can with that. Got a socket that lines up to the outer. Ring of the bearing. You'll see these wood blocks everywhere I was using to kind of support, because I didn't want to break my side kit cover. So I was using them to support it while driving out the old ones. And that worked well. I did have to get pretty tough with it, so I was really careful about the placement of those blocks, paying attention to the supports and where it might have its strongest areas. Anyhow, that's what the bearing should look like. It should be flush and seated down inside there, and you shouldn't feel any grinding or roughness on any bearings when you spin them in your hand. Next for this side is our actual pump seal. Called a pump seal. I'm a pool guy. Pump seal, numbers out, numbers and letters out, outside of on the outside of the bike. The other side also has notches. I've heard other people describe it as the wider lip from here to here. This is a wider lip than the inside, but numbers out, laces out. And that guy, obviously your starting point should be somewhat level with it. Shouldn't take much. Get that in there. Next we flip it over. We've got another bearing on the inside. This is our brand new bearing. Make sure your parts are clean. Sitting on a workbench that might be a little dusty. This is our good bearing. Wow, nice and smooth. Very different than the other that I was considering installing. Now you notice I'm going to have to go back to the blocks for the same reason when I was driving it out. Well, actually this time put it right under it. dirty. Doesn't help to clean your parts and then use a dirty mallet. Drive that in until it's flush as well. Okay, so after those two bearings, one's on the inside, one is on the outside and below your pump seal, the shaft seal. You'll notice in the kit you get a small O-ring for your new drive shaft. This little guy right here. Roll it slowly until it fits in this groove and should snap down in there in place. Probably a good idea to put a little tiny bit of lubricant on it so it doesn't snag in any way.
What are you doing?
Making a video. Damn it, Mom! Meatloaf! Meatloaf, Mom!
I'm gonna go check on the kids, make sure they're not causing problems.
You also notice in this kit a sleeve. The old sleeve I noticed was badly has ridges worn into it. I think this thing got hot. I remember a ride before my knee surgery where we got up at Bean Canyon in California, got stuck down in a canyon. It was a do or die, very hot day. Took everything we had to get out of there, and I'm sure the bike overheated, getting this thing really hot. Anyhow, this sleeve slides over your shaft. Again, a little bit of lubricant. Got a bubble, or yeah. And that should seat down in there up against your bearing. Also in the kit, you got a new O-ring for your side or your water pump cover, which I'll be installing in a minute. And you've got this oval-shaped washer that slides down in here. Then the impeller and the nut. Notice the impeller has also that oval or slotted shape to it. If you've done this right, the spacing I think is going to be about equal to a credit card in between the side cover and the impeller. I'm really happy with that. I didn't notice any grooving from the factory. It's the first time someone's been in here. But that should be about right, and then the nut goes over the top of that. So I used the pick to remove the old gasket. I'm sure it was fine, but why not, right? This new gasket, there is no wrong way to put it in. It's only going to go in one way. It's preformed to the shape of that water pump. So just make sure you're dealing with clean surfaces. It also has these little tabs on the inner groove. If you see those little teeth, it kind of holds it in place. So you're not worried about as you put your cover on or something that it fell out of place. Kind of nice. Most of the time in the automotive industry and stuff, you have to apply some sort of grease or something to pin it down, and you're not certain that it didn't fall out of place as you mate the other surface to it. I like this idea. Some of these manufacturers could learn from Beta on that. So easy enough. Also, I was raised in a redneck family where our idea of fun was building motors on a Saturday. So thanks to my Uncle Ron Fuller, I learned long ago clean all your surfaces. So we got a Scotch-Brite pad. You'll notice the gasket kind of transferred some letters. It's probably just ink, no big deal. A little bit of buildup here. We're just gonna clean it all up, why not, right? Anytime you're mating surfaces to a gasket or O-ring, you wanna make sure that you're dealing with clean surfaces. You don't wanna remove any material with sandpaper or anything like that, but Brillo Scotch pad is probably the best for that. Clutch plates are out. You want to pry on the basket. Hard to do with one hand, but I'm going to get this. Actually, I need to get this one, the one that's up against the face of the lock nut. Well, I'm not proud of it, but I don't have a clutch basket holding tool. I know in here these are probably hardened steel gears. I shoved an Allen in there, which puts force on this, cast aluminum case. You can see I don't like that solely, so I also put some screws in here in the clutch basket, and I'm holding it with a big screwdriver. Not proud of this. Probably shouldn't even show it. I'm sure everybody will talk crap. But it worked. Can't believe they put plastic gears in here. Makes no sense to me. When you're putting this outer gear for the clutch, you might have to wiggle some gears in here to make sure that it seats all the way. It should seat so it's almost touching this plastic piece here. At first it may seem like it's on there, but it's not. You got to wiggle some gears and wiggle it simultaneously for it to seat all the way back in there and engage here, as well as in the back for the idler gear for the oil pump gear. Both of those engage on this outer geared ring. There's another set of gears down near the shaft on the back side. So two gears have to engage on this outer ring. We've got our Loctite on here. You'll notice that there's one flat side right there. All these others are curved or rounded. They have a radius to them. All these other spokes. But there's one that's completely flat. That's where the washer that locks on the lock ring goes. Stupid working with my left hand. So we'll tighten that up and bend the tabs. I'm putting these sleeves back in now. And the end that is a full circle seats all the way back in there with the cup, if you will, portion facing out. When it goes all the way in there, it's machined in a way that it grabs a hold of that circular portion. I don't know if you can see it, but actually it doesn't. It just backs up to it. Put these seat in there, and you want them to be somewhat flush right here. Like so. Okay, here we are back over at the bike. Gonna pull our old gasket off. Do my best to not tear it in any way. Not just for the purpose of putting the new one on or reusing it. I don't intend to reuse it. If you've ever had a scraped gaskets, it's never fun. Looks like it's gotten hot and starting to peel a little bit. We'll see. No promises. Might have to use a plastic razor blade or something to get it off entirely. We'll see. There are some pins over here we have to deal with. I'll try and loosen it up elsewhere before I get to those. So that'll help that come off easy. There's another one down here by your rear brake. If the genius is in charge of the United States, by the way, his name is not Brandon, he's just a puppet. The world goes crazy and you can't get parts. It sure would be nice to have another gasket. Looks like there's a little bit of paper that tore off there. I'll probably get a little more over there. So we'll get the Scotch-Brite pad, clean that up. And when I do this over a section of motor that I care about not getting contaminated with whatever comes off these little pieces of paper or even dust, right? We care. Often what I'll do is I'll spray like a silicone or WD-40 on my Scotch-Brite so it's oily, and that way hopefully any of these contaminants would more stick to the Scotch-Brite than they would fall into our transmission area. Okay, got the gasket material all cleaned up. Got it cleaned up. Sprayed down my gasket with some silicone lubricant just so kind of like hydrate the cardboard so that we can really get it to smash, press on there. I don't know if that matters, but something I like to do. Can't hurt. Gasket's sitting on there nicely. Ready for side cover. One-handed side cover installation coming up. Kind of pressing down the material. It was sticking up a bit. That green ridge there. Even though it sits on those pins, it's just paper. It can float a little bit. So just want to make sure we get the most of the gasket material into the joint. Before we go sinking screws. Speaking of screws, I think they're on the workbench. Okay, one thing, if you guys intend to use any drills on this, we're going into soft aluminum, right? It'd be a big deal if you stripped it out or went around once. So, I always tell my guys at work, set your clutch. Set your clutch. I don't know, 3, something like that. You can always tighten it up if it drips, right? But if you've gone too far, you can't go back, man. I start with the middle. I'm gonna work my way out. Sorry, bad camera work. I'm trying to do. These are all the same size. Stay away from your water pump housing just yet. That comes later. So we started there. We're going to kind of work our way out. No Kickstarter this time around. I want a fortune for that thing. I really want it, but after rewiring the electrical system on this thing, it's charging now and with no issues and new battery. So I don't foresee getting stuck somewhere. Although it's happened twice. Never fun. Okay, we're good there. From here I say go by hand. I'm gonna use that torque wrench God gave me in my elbow to cinch these all down. I know there's torque specs for it. I couldn't find them. I'd say follow your torque specs, search for that, and use a torque wrench. But I'm gonna go without. I've been doing stuff like this a while, and I got a pretty good feel for it. Now the last bolt on the water pump cover, the bottom one, notice it goes in this position here, lined up with the hose in that top area. In the pool industry we call this a volute. It catches the water that's slung by the impeller and sends it up the pipe. That bottom hole there gets a new crush washer. I don't know if that's important. I mean, you could probably get away with using the old one, but we're gonna put it in. Just put a little shine on her. I just put this linkage protection on there. It is the lowest thing on the bike. It's not rubber. And since I'm in Idaho now, I expect a bunch of woods riding. So I'm gonna hop a log. I think I'd rather it hit that than directly hit my linkage. Cool little kit, came from Nice CNC for a 2019. Alright, all done. Had to, of course, put my fluids back. Not exactly sure if I bled this radiator all the way. I loosened up my bleeder screw there, and I've, refilled my fluids and ripped it around the neighborhood. 7100, that's 750 milliliters or cc's for your engine side. And the trans oil. This one's 850 dry, which is what it was on your trans side. I did put a new oil filter in that I did a while back. So yeah, ran around the neighborhood, watched the temps, went through the gears, everything's good.